I've been playing Valheim for about 3 weeks now, and I have to say it's one of the most enjoyable games I've played in recent memory. While it is fun, some systems aren't greatly explained, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to do a video series explaining everything from spawning in to the end of the game and beyond. This is Valheim Explained. The first thing you'll do when you boot up Valheim, which I will say only takes about a gigabyte of space on your computer, so it's really small, will be being greeted by the start menu, where once you decide to start a game, you'll be taken to a character creator for your first warrior. Here you can alter your sex, skin tone, hair, beard options, along with colour and blondness options. Once you're happy with your new Viking warrior, you can set up a new world. When creating a new world, you'll have the choice as to whether or not to include a seed for the world or not. You can find seeds online to cater the world to what you want to end up with, but I suggest leaving that and going in blind with a random world, as half the fun of the game is exploring. Once all that fun admin is done, we can start and hop into the world of Valheim. While the world loads in for the first time, you'll be greeted by a wall of scrolling text which fills you in on the lore reasoning for being in the world. But to summarise, you're a dead Viking warrior who's been resurrected into the 10th realm. This acts as a purgatory for Vikings, where you need to defeat long locked away forsaken monsters to prove to Odin that you are worthy and be accepted into the walls of Valhalla. Following this, you'll appear in the sky, being carried to the spawn area by a Valkyrie. After a lovely little flight, you'll soon touch down onto the starting platform, which is a stone tablet on the ground surrounded by pillars representing the 5 main bosses currently in the game. It's at this point that you'll be introduced to Hugin, one of the 2 Ravens of Odin, who will come down and prompt you to talk to him. Through the duration of the game, Hugin will persist as the main way of tutorialization and will appear occasionally as you progress throughout the game. He will begin by giving you an introduction of your tasks and what to do, citing that you need to gear up and get stronger to defeat the first boss, Íkfir. Sorry for any mispronunciation. Hugin will have you read a runestone, which will place the summoning stage for Íkfir on the map, and so your adventure begins. The first thing you'll want to do once you've talked to Hugin is explore around for a bit. Forage for branches, stones, berries, and any other items you may find from the ground. These will be needed to craft tools for tree chopping and base building. You can also punch small trees like this for more wood early on. I would recommend exploring around the world for a good chunk of your first day and try to find a good area for your starting base. When deciding where to go for your first base, try and make sure you keep it as close to the shoreline of the sea as you can, with ideally being on as flat a ground as you can. You will find abandoned structures dotted throughout the world, but I would say setting up a base yourself is the better option, as it gives you a chance to learn about the base building and it just looks nicer. After exploring for a little bit, you'll want to begin starting a base and getting some weapons, so it's important that you know how to craft. Bring up your inventory by pressing tab, and on the right hand side of the screen you'll see the crafting screen. To craft the beginning tools, namely the axe and the hammer, you will need stones and wood, which you should have picked up while out exploring. Once you have these crafted and have found an area for your base, right click with the hammer equipped to bring up the hammer's crafting menu, which is used for all structure based crafting in the game, and then choose the workbench. The workbench is needed in order to make a base, as structures can only be placed while the workbench is nearby, and the area is dictated by the dotted white lines visible when in range. The workbench is also needed to craft more advanced tools, which you can access by interacting with the bench, but be wary that you will need to ensure the workbench is sheltered before accessing it. Once that is done, you can access the workbench to access further crafting options. Craftable items are discovered as you pick up materials needed for their construction. The workbench will be required for crafting early game armors, tools, weapons and shields, and will give you the ability to repair all equipment crafted from it. While in the crafting menu for the workbench, you will see an upgrades tab next to the crafting one. This is used to upgrade already crafted gear. Upgraded gear will increase durability, damage output, and your blocking ability, depending on the item. As you progress, upgrades to the workbench itself become available. Although they will need to be crafted with the hammer, the first of these will be the chopping block. Bear in mind that when you place these items, they must be within a certain radius of the workbench itself to count as an upgrade for that bench. As the game goes on and you defeat more bosses and more resources become available, so too will the amount of crafting stations that you have. They all function similarly enough to the workbench, with the main difference being the caliber of items that can be crafted, such as the forge. At this stage, you'll now have forged some materials, crafted your starting gear, and made a workbench. From here, you'll want to build yourself a starting base. By right clicking with the hammer equipped and a workbench in range, you will bring up the build menu, which will have all the building pieces that you can create a base with. Something to note, however, is that only roof pieces overhead will count as shelter, the floor pieces sadly do not, so bear this in mind when you construct your base. The first thing to bear in mind when constructing a base is ensuring that it's flat and a solid foundation to create on top of. To help with finding a good flat area, craft the hoe from the build menu, which will allow you to level off the ground relative to where you're standing. You also have the option to raise the ground if needed, although this does require stone to do so, so maybe don't do it right at the start. Thankfully for inexperienced players, Valheim's snap-on mechanics with building pieces is easy to grasp and benefits greatly in the building process. Using this, you can build yourself a foundation. Ideally, I would say a 3x4 area works well as a starting hut. Then, go around the rim of your 12 tile area and wall it off, not forgetting to add yourself a door. You'll then want to use either of the slanted options for a thatch roof, and use these to make yourself a triangular roof. You'll then fill in the gaps to build the walls up, and voila, you have your first starting base. It is important to bear in mind that if you want to make a larger or taller structure, you will run into complications with the structural integrity of the build not being enough to support itself. You can see how secure a building piece will be by the colour of the part you're building onto. It will go from green for it being secure, and red for it being unable to build upon to, and it will then break. Don't worry too much about this at the start, as you should only be building small bases at this point in the game, until you get set up properly. The next thing to build in your base will be moving the workbench into the main building, placing down a bed to set your spawn so that you can sleep for the night, as well as a campfire. Although if you make a campfire within the build, be wary that it cannot be placed on the wooden flooring and that smoke can build up inside the house and cause you damage. But by building a chimney, this can be avoided. Next, we'll be placing down some cooking stands over the fire. You can at max have about 6 cooking stands, but I find 4 or 5 works best and doesn't look as cluttered, which is also nice. You also need to know that to sleep during the night, the fire must be nearby, otherwise you will be unable to sleep in your bed, but a spawn can be made regardless. You will have noticed at this stage that you have a little comfort icon with a number next to it. This will increase as you add more furniture to the base, and it will buff your rested status effect. But I'll go deeper into that and all the rest to do with base building, etc. in another video. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss another video. Unlike other survival games where food is a necessity, as without it you're going to starve and die, i.e. Minecraft, Rust, Daisy, etc., Valheim's usage of food is handled in a different, arguably more fun and accessible way. Although not required for survival, food will make your time in Valheim much easier, as it boosts your health, stamina, and the regen rates for both of those. You will notice at the bottom left of your screen, next to the health bar, there are 3 little slots for food. For each different item of food that you consume, your health and stamina will increase by a certain amount, depending on the food, as well as giving you a health regen, which is also dependent on what food you're eating. The free slots are in place so that you can only eat a certain type of food for each slot, meaning you can't eat the same food 3 times over. So this means that it's important to experiment with food and try and find the best combinations for what you want, as each different type of food will have a different health buff, a different stamina increase, and a different duration for how long it will last. A good early game combination is cooked meat, cooked necktail, and honey. Each food item will have a different value of how much health it provides, and also how much stamina bonus you're going to have. Also bear in mind that as the game goes on, more food items will become available, which offer a higher buff as you advance, many of which being recipes including an array of different food items and different combinations. So, even though I've already said that you don't need to eat in the game in order to survive, in order to progress and fight tougher enemies, especially the bosses, food is a necessity, not only due to the health buffs and the added stamina, but also to the health regen that you get during tough battles. Moving on to one of the main aspects of Valheim, combat and fighting. Now, while combat in Valheim seems very basic on the surface level, with a simple attack and block mechanic, there are some vital nuances that can warrant their own video, but I'll go into the basic mechanics for now. The basic layout of combat in Valheim works with the left click for attacking, the right click for blocking, and the dodging mechanic by holding in block and tapping the space bar while going in the desired direction. All actions performed in combat cost stamina, and so much of the challenge in managing stamina while avoiding damage and dealing it to the opponent. There is another move in your warrior's arsenal which may not be apparent at first glance, and this is the parry mechanic, which is when you block an enemy attack at the right time before the moment of impact. This causes the enemy to become staggered, and for the next couple of hits they are vulnerable to attack and more damage is dealt to them. The usage of shields will mean you can block more damage and make parrying easier, for instance when wielding a shield and an axe, or per this example, a shield and a sword. There are a lot of different things to consider when going into a fight, such as what food you eat to boost your health and stamina, what armor you're wearing and how much it's going to protect you, and the type of weapon you use versus different enemies, as every enemy has a different weapon that they're weak against, and some have resistances to certain types of weapons as well. But as I said, I'll make a separate video going in depth into damage type and what it is strong or weak against, but what I've said here will be enough to get you started in the world. The final section left to cover is the skills and leveling system, which is wonderfully simple, as all you need to do to rank something up in the game is to do that task. So every time you sprint, swim, block, attack, chop a tree or fire a bow, you will gain levels in that category, and you can access a full list of your skills and the levels of each of them in the inventory menu displayed on screen now. There's not a lot more I can say in terms of explaining this leveling system, other than I can just say that it's really nice and refreshing, especially since most AAA games nowadays rely on a skill tree instead of just letting your skills grow as you develop within the game. The bonuses you receive for leveling up different aspects of your character are things like less stamina drain doing said tasks, more damage output for the tasks such as hitting or chopping trees, and being able to do it faster or jump farther as the skill outlines. So the more you level up your running skill, the faster you'll run. The more you level up your jump skill, the higher you jump. So if you want to see what each skill's effects are, just make sure you hover over the mouse of the skills section while in the menu, and it will tell you what level you are and how close you are to your next level up. Okay, and so to finish up, I hope you all found this video helpful. It took a lot to pull everything together and to keep it all concise into the one video, but I hope this video will act as a good starting point for your journey in Valheim going forward. So if you did enjoy it, I hope you leave a like, comment what you're going to do in Valheim, and subscribe to the channel so that you can see loads more videos like this that I will be making soon. But anyway, without further ado, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.